All right. With that in mind, let's go back to our manuscript. And who went last?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
That some of their verbs end in alpha iota instead of, so like later on in chapter 8, there's oidate, and they end at oidatai.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a spelling variation?
Yes. And we'll see actually a good number of those. You probably picked up on several of them, right?
Yes.
That usually it goes from EI to I is a common one, right? They just drop the E. That's considered a natural spelling variation that a lot of scribes did. It's not really regarded as a spelling error, but it is a spelling difference. And incidentally, that does count as a textual variation, back to our crazy numerical counting of textual variations. All right, let's read this. Who's up? I'm losing track here. Are you up? Okay, so Daniel, this will be, let's try to do it on a so you're starting in the middle of a sentence here, ason, right? Search and see here, basically. And let's go down to, where is it? A sort of a natural stopping point here. 3, 4. Well, I'm going to take let's go down to life. I know that sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. It'll go fast. See life down here? In him was the light of life, right where my cursor is.
I think so. Yep.
So if you look at my cursor on the screen, that's the zoes. So just read down to there, and we'll talk about a bunch of different stuff.
Ason kai ide hati ektes Galileas prophetes uk egeretai alin un autois alalesen isu ego emi ta fos tu cosmon akuluthon emoi u ne peripatese ente scotia ale eke ta phos tes zoes.
Okay.
So that out of Galilee no prophets will arise. Again, Jesus.
Hold on, don't forget the end of the prior sentence.
The end of what?
I think you left out ason kai ide. I think you just started with out of Galilee. I may have heard you wrong. Don't forget to translate these first words right here, which is the end of a sentence that started on the prior page. But
should we go before Ason?
no, I got the impression you did not translate ason. I think you started with ekte Galileas, out of Galilee.
Out of Galilee they searched,
Oh, maybe you were putting the verb at the end. So start over and let's see if maybe I was mishearing you.
maybe I just did bad notes up in my notes. Sorry. So that out of Galilee no prophet will arise. Again, Jesus spoke to them and said, I am the light of the world. The one who follows me will not walk in darkness, but he will have the light of life.
Okay, looked like a lot of text, but it's a fairly short translation. Okay, so what I was getting at is I think you did, Daniel, miss these first few verbs here. So what you have on the prior page is uraneson. You're seeing the very tail end of it. So search and see that. Okay? In other words, I think it's the Pharisees talking here. You will search and see that the prophet doesn't come from Galilee, okay, is what they're basically saying. So search and see that. Ek tes Galileas, and we'll come back to this, ha prophetes, uk, does not, geratai, does not arise. Let's parse the geratai there, Daniel.
Geratai, present, passive, indicative, third person, singular, from agero.
All right, what do you notice odd about its spelling? should be this, right? Agaritai. What should be. Look down, what do you see?
There's a line underneath the AI.
Yeah, that's just the nomen sacra below it. I'm talking about the spelling. So we'll just walk through the letters. E, G, I. So what just got dropped? The E. All right, this is the first example of, I think, what Ryan mentioned. This very normal for scribes to take EI and just put I. Okay? So this is a giritai, or should be a garitai, but that didn't mean anything. That any second century Greek reader would know exactly what he was doing. Okay? So the prophet basically will not arise out of Galilee, is what this is saying. So this is the Jewish claim. Remember, Jesus in this section is back and forth with the Pharisees. And they're saying, look, just search and see. No prophet comes out of Galilee. Okay, well, they're wrong, obviously. But you can see that the disdain here for Galilee. Okay, this is the backwater, place that no one would want to come from. I always try to think of a modern equivalent of coming from Galilee, and every time I think of it, I don't want to mention it because someone might be from there, and then it makes it sound like it's, offensive to them. But what I want you to see here is that this would have been seen as impossible for the Messiah to come from a place so low. All right, a couple other things I want you to note here in this opening line. This opening line has a ton of significance. Notice again the diaeresis here. Search and see, kai ide. Notice there's two iotas side by side. The scribe wants to distinguish between the two, so he puts that. What do you think this little mark is, Daniel? This little curve.
Is that smooth breathe mark?
Yeah, just smooth breathing. Right on the front of ek, right? That ek, no rough breathing, but smooth breathing, so it's a pronunciation. Look and see that out of Galilee, no prophet arises. I want you also to notice a very interesting variation here with the Omicron. Notice it doesn't say that a prophet doesn't come out of Galilee. Notice what the scribe originally wrote. The prophet does not come out of Galilee. Now, why do you think he would have put the prophet? What would be the prophet as opposed to a prophet?
Is this the reference to Deuteronomy 18?
Bingo, that's exactly right. So Deuteronomy 18 is the very well-known prophecy that someone like Moses will arise from the people and be a great prophet. It was not just any old prophet, it was the prophet. In other words, it was the Messiah. So what the ha here suggests is a reference probably back in the scribe's mind to Deuteronomy 18, okay, the prophet. Notice that what's gone on is the corrector's gone back and scratched it off as best he can, okay? The reason is because it seems to be a mistake. It doesn't actually have the definite article on it. It seems to just say that a prophet cannot arise from Galilee, even though this particular scribe originally put the prophet does not arise from Galilee. We would say both are true, okay? In other words, he may have been referencing any prophet, but probably had mainly the Messiah in mind when he made this statement. And this is interesting, and I'll show you an example in the text critical apparatus about this. So here's verse 52, and there's some interesting little variations here that are worth noticing about verse 52. But I want you to notice that verse 52 is up here. Notice what it says. And they answered and said to him, search, and you will see that ektes galeas prophetes uk ageritai. A prophet will not arise out of Galilee. Notice that the Greek text does not include the definite article, okay? And notice there's this little number 10 right there. So you scroll down, you find number 10 here, and notice what it says. Ektes gales prophetes, parentheses, P66, asterisk, has ha prophetes. Okay, let me try to help you see this. What this textual apparatus is saying is that the asterisk means the original hand of P66. The original hand of P66 wrote ha prophetes. And apparently he wasn't the only one to do it. Look, there's some other ones here. And I'd have to look up these abbreviations. These are probably patristic references to different people who've done the same thing. So maybe it was not unusual to take this prophet as the prophet. But notice your text critical apparatus actually lodges this variant, okay, which is very interesting as a note. But it's pretty rare. Notice that hardly anybody else does it, which is probably why it was a textual variation and it's not included in the original text up here. So that's why it was scratched off. You can see how faded it is by whoever the scribe was who corrected it. All right, also, now this first sentence is packed, so we're going to stay on a little longer. Also, I want you to notice something else, which is really interesting. Notice two little hash marks here and another hash mark here over ha prophetes. I want to see who did their homework here. And Daniel, you can answer, or anyone can answer. What in the world is going on here? I'll rephrase it. Is the word order of this verse the same word order as what's in your UBS text? Let's just look at our UBS text again. Here it is. Look and you will see that ek tes Galilees, out of Galilee a prophet does not arise. So notice it says out of Galilee first, then the word prophet. Okay, we can pull back up. So notice it says ek tes Galilees, then the word prophet. Okay, so our word order here in the actual text matches the word order in our EBS text. Okay, fair enough, but what's going on with these lines then?
Saying the words out of place, so the second one means the word with two lines over it should be second, maybe. And the first line, one line means it should be first.
Absolutely. So what you have is I want you guys to see this because this is really fascinating. This is a correction by a second scribe. And what he's telling you is that the word order originally written was wrong. That ha prophete should come right after hati. Look and see that the prophet cannot come from out of Galilee. The way it's written is, out of Galilee will not come the prophet. But what the scribe is correcting it to is that prophet should be up here under hati. In other words, he's saying the way the scribe wrote it in P66 got the word order wrong. And these little hash marks are correcting the word order and putting it back the way that corrector thinks it ought to be. So he wants you to move in your head prophet up here to where ectes Galileus is, so that it would read, for the prophet does not come from Galilee. This is then a correction. What this tells you, this is remarkable, this tells you that there is a very sophisticated textual criticism going on in the 2nd century. They were looking at the text and were so concerned about word order, they were telling you to switch it. Now, let's look at our textual apparatus and see if we can see this. Notice the reading that the text concludes in our Greek text. Ex tes Galileus prophetes. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, you can see it. Notice that our text preserves the original reading of P66. But notice here it captures the corrected reading of P66. Notice it says, prophetess ecte Galilees. In other words, it switches the word order and puts prophet first. And notice it says P66C. What that means is the corrector of P66 has this word order. The original P66 has this word order, and the corrector of P66 has this word order. Who agrees with the corrector of P66? Answer, Sinaiticus and Codex Bezae, which are two huge witnesses. Up here, Vaticanus agrees with the original wording of P66. So what you have is different witnesses testifying the different word orders here. And apparently the corrector of P66 thought the word order should be different, and he tried to indicate that in the text with these little hash marks. Now let me ask you this. After all the dust settles on that, is the meaning changed at all? Not a lick. What's amazing about this is that whether you say out of Galilee a prophet, or whether you say a prophet out of Galilee, grammatically, it's no different at all. But notice how careful the scribes are. They don't just say, who cares? They're like, yeah, we're going to tell you, we think the word order should be different here. They're that precise. So this is an interesting example of the way textual criticism was done, even in the manuscripts of the ancient world. And I think you ought to take note of that, because I think it's one of the most fascinating things about this particular copy. So look and see that out of Galilee, the prophet will not, agaritai, will not arise out of Galilee, is what it's saying. But the word order is different there, according to different texts. So you've got this variant with the Omicron, and you've got the word order variant, all in the very first couple lines here. Yep?
I think I remember Dr. Kerr saying, just looking at it, the word order in Greek is less important than it is in English.
Yes.
So why would a scribe care? Like, is he trying to be true to the original text?
Yes, exactly. You're bringing up exactly the point I'm trying to make, which is that in Greek, word order is definitively secondary, because you don't need word order to make your point, unlike English, because word order is irrelevant in Greek sometimes, not always, but most of the time, because you have cases. Yeah, Greek is inflected, so you have nominative, genitive, dative, accused that tells you the function of a word. In English, you probably don't even think about this because you're such an intuitive English speaker. You probably don't realize that in English, word order is bound up, meaning is bound up a lot with word order. And by the way, Hebrew's like that. Greek, you can flip everything around because there's little tags on the end of each word telling you how it functions, namely the case. So because Greek has cases, word order is secondary, which means it doesn't change the meaning, which raises the question you just did. Well, why does the scribe bother correcting it? The answer is because he cared about what the original said, right? Notice how much sensitivity there is here to what the original text says. Now, in this instance, curiously, we think the corrector might have been wrong. The corrector wanted it to go back to a different order, which is not the order that ended up making it into our UBS text. So it's actually the original form of our scribe that made it in our UPS text, and the corrector corrected it wrongly, which is an interesting phenomenon. In other words, it was right, and the corrector made it wrong. Not a very good corrector, assuming that original text really is original. This is why I pulled out the textual apparatus for you, so you could see this as it manifests itself in your Greek New Testaments. Other questions about that line? Yep, Bar?
With something like that, is there any way to be able to tell whether the corrector came right behind the scribe and was looking at the same manuscript and saw that he made a typo, or whether he was coming with
correcting it from another manuscript? Yeah, that we don't know that. Almost always they're going to correct it based on the same exemplar. Okay, so it could be that the exemplar was simply wrong, and since the corrector corrected it back to the exemplar, he put it back to where it was wrong. Okay. But again, it doesn't really matter much. The meaning doesn't change. All right, let's continue on here in the section that was read. So no prophet can come out of Galilee. And then Jesus speaks. And again, Palin, therefore, and again to them he spoke. Jesus spoke, legon, saying. Let's just do some parsing here, Daniel. How about Ella Layson?
Aorist, active, indicative, third person, singular, from Malaya.
Okay, and how about legon?
It's participle, so it's present active, and then it's singular and nominative masculine from Lega.
Okay, this is standard fare of the way the Gospels introduce the sayings of Jesus. So Jesus, again, therefore, to them spoke, saying. Okay, so he spoke, saying. You're like, why do you have to have double verbs there? Well, that's just the way they set it up that way. Notice the nomina sacra. This is the first nomina sacra of Jesus that you've seen, if I'm not mistaken. So notice the iota sigma here. It's Jesus with the line over the top. It's the first Jesus nomina sacra. He spoke to them saying, and then notice this line, ego, eimi, ta, phos, tu, cosmu. I am the light of the world. One of the reasons I wanted to point out this passage to you is because you get a chance to see one of the I am statements, one of the best ones, right here in a second century text. And this is an ego and me. I am the light of the world, right? We talked about this in my Gospels class, the significance of ego and me. It's divine declaration. God speaks this way as the I am. Jesus is speaking this way. He says something amazing about himself. I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me, ha akaluthon, and let's parse that one, Daniel.
It's a parsable again, so it's present and active, and it's singular and nominative masculine from akaluthea.
Yeah, so it's an adjectival part or an attributive part. Whoever follows, emoi, whoever follows me, ume, will never. Okay, this is the emphatic negative. Ume, peripatese, will never walk ente scotia, never walk in darkness. How about peripatese, Daniel?
Aorist, active, subjunctive, third person, singular.
What made you think that there was going to be a subjunctive here? You're correct. Follow the cursor. Follow the cursor.
I'm looking at that.
Here's your subjunctive, peripatese, followed by ume, or sorry, preceded by ume. Okay, you guys, I know this is probably a long time ago. One of the most emphatic ways to make a denial in Greek is ume followed by the subjunctive, okay? This means never, not going to happen. So he who, in this construction, he who follows me, akaluthon, will not in darkness walk, okay? In other words, not that you'll never sin, but that you're not going to be someone who's in the path of darkness. So this is a very emphatic negative. So when you see an ume, it's followed by a subjunctive. Remember, just like hina is followed by a subjunctive, that these are little clues in the text that you're getting there. And how far did you go?
Until zoes.
Okay. And in taste, notice here, this is interesting, right? N-T-E-S. Notice what the scribe did. He put the correction above the line. Someone went back over and said, hey, wait, you left out the taste for scotia. So in te scotia, you will not walk in darkness. But this is an interesting little mark right here. What do you make of this? And Daniel, you can comment, or I'll open it up to anybody here to comment.
Well, like, so he separates the two lambdas.
Mm-hmm. But the two lambdas don't need to be separated is the problem.
Yeah. Is that, it's not a reading mark or anything. So, is that an error? Because should it come after the second lambda?
Yeah, this is my best guess on this, and I don't know. I think this is a mistake. Notice it's A-L-L. What should have been after the L?
A.
Another A, right? So what you have here is basically in the text, all exe, tephos, tes, zoes, basically, but will have the light of life. The alpha that was supposed to go here is another example of a legion. It's taken out. And in a legion, sometimes you put a little apostrophe in its place. I think you just got it on the wrong side. Open to other suggestions on that. But we'll have taphos, tes, zoe, but we'll have the light of life. Okay, good start to this very interesting text, in my opinion. Any questions about that one? All right, let's see here. Eric, are we at you? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start here with apon, right where my cursor is. And let me see, let's see how far we can go here. Let's go down to Martyria Mu. Right here. See that raised middle dot.
Okay.
I'll give you guys longer sections here because this is a lighter passage. Okay?
Okay. Epon u auto oi pharisioi su peri citeon marturis he marturia su uc esteem alethes ape crete is, I'm assuming, Jesus. Kai epon autois con ego marturio peri aim autu aleis estin he marturia moi. And going all the way back up here. Okay. And the Pharisees said to him, "You are testifying concerning yourself. Your testimony is not true." Jesus answered and said to them, "If I am testifying concerning myself," and taking from the last line, "my testimony is true. Even if I am testifying concerning myself, my testimony is true."
Okay, and you went all the way down to this martyria mu. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, good. All right, let's just break this down a little bit. So Jesus responds. Remember, the Pharisees have made an accusation against him, and now he responds with a sort of opening line here, apon. And therefore he said, or the Pharisees respond first, sorry. The Pharisees said to him, basically, let's find my place in the text here. Su peri, you, concerning yourself, you testify, martyris. Let's parse martyris there.
Present, active, indicative, second singular.
Yeah, what do you notice that's odd about it?
It's missing the epsilon.
Okay, now everyone see that again? You got a good example of this. This is a scribal habit, right? This scribe likes to take EIs and go to I. So here it is again. Martyres, which is a standard second singular, he just drops the E. So now it's martyris. He says, you testify, basically, concerning yourself. And therefore, hey to martyris, your testimony is not, uk estin, alethes, is not true. Then we got the answer, apokathrith. It's one of those days. Apokrithe. Parse that one for us, right here.
Right. Is that aorist opponent indicative third singular?
Yeah. So Jesus answered and said to them, con ego. Notice the scribal correction again here. By the way, let me ask you this question. Notice the scribal correction, con ego. Who wants to take a guess at whether the scribe that's doing the correcting is the same scribe doing the writing? Can you do a little analysis of his handwriting here? Here's him writing epsilon.
Yeah, it would seem to be the same because he draws out that middle line.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at on the screen here, you got an epsilon up here with the dot, with the long extension, with a little blob on the end, and then again his correction looks like the same thing going on. Again, different scribes can make epsilon the same way, but you just do your best to decide whether the scribal hand is the same guy or not. But you can see there's another epsilon here that does the same thing, another epsilon here that does the same thing, and there even is a sense in which the top gap is a little smaller than the bottom gap. So looking at this very closely, see the smaller gap there and a bigger gap there? That is sort of standard for this guy. So notice this example. Small gap, big gap. So, I mean, my hunch here is that you're dealing with the same scribe. So Jesus answered and said to him, here's our nomina sacra again. And it says, even if I testify concerning myself, peri amatu, true is my testimony. Estin e martyria mu. My testimony is true. And he's getting ready to tell you why, and that's the next sentence. For. And we'll stop there on that reading. But this is bringing us down almost to our last bit here. Okay. Questions on that sentence? Okay, so we're back over to Corey, if I'm right, and we're here on Hati. Trying to think of a natural place for you to go. Let's go down to this middle point right here with Udena. See where that is?
Okay.
Yep. So Jesus is getting ready to tell you why his testimony is true. Continue.
Hati oida papen elthon kai pu hupago humes de udate or udatai papen erkomai he pu hupago humes kata tain sarka krinete ego u krino udena.
Okay.
For I know whence I came and where I go, but you know not whence I am going or where I go. You judge according to the flesh. I'm not judging anybody.
All right. I like the whence. It's very King James. Okay, so Jesus throws out his answer here, starting with his answer. For I know from where, Pothen, Elthon, basically from where I came. And let's parse Elthon.
Aorist, active, indicative, first person singular.
And from where I go. Notice here, this is like a diaresis central, right? And also, from where, in this instance, P-O-U, and then hupago, U-P-A-G-O, humis. So notice there's a diaresis here separating these two, and there's a diaresis here separating these. So this is where he tries to lay out. He knows from where I come from. And then he says, but you, humis, oidomati, or oidomatai. And how about parsing that one for us?
Oidate?
Yeah.
Perfect, active, indicative, second person's plural.
All right. It's not active. Got this as middle passive. And this is actually one of those textual variations. What is the, does anyone know what John actually has here? Yes. So this is in John O-I-D-A-T-E, and then he's added odate. He's made it passive, right? He goes, basically, he wanted to say basically here, you do not know from where I come, but instead, it is not known from where I come. So he kind of makes this passive, which flubs up the sentence a little bit. And this is something, he makes the same mistake again in just a moment when he puts something in the passive. You kind of get the impression our scribe might be getting a little tired here. Either way, there's a spelling error there that is worth noting when it comes to sort of working out what this text means. So hoidate, for he should say, you do not know from where I come from, or where I go, pu a go. For you, humes, kata, tain, for you, according to the flesh, sarka, right here, you judge. And how about parsing that one, krinatai? How about that one, Corey?
Present, middle, indicative, second person, plural.
Yeah, and is that what John originally had? No. You're like, I'm going to take a guess on this one. No, you're right. He actually made the same mistake twice. He took an active and made it a passive, which again jumbles up the sentence. He basically should say, you judge according to the flesh, and what he ends up saying is, in essence, the flesh is judged, or you are judged according to the flesh, or something like this. And this is another mistake, and you kind of have a little bit of a row here, a row of these. And then notice this last section. You judge according to the flesh, but ego, I judge, I do not judge anyone, udena. Notice the ego here is included in the text. It's a superfluous. Remember, the ego is already implied in the krino, I judge. He goes, I do not judge anyone, as the last little clause there, which is interesting, again, that he uses the emphatic I. In contrast to you people who are judging based on what you don't know, I do not judge anyone that way. And then he talks about what he does when he does judge. All right, let's do the last sentence. Ryan, finish this out here. Just take it to the end, and even though I know it cuts off in the middle.
Okay. Kai eon krino de ego Christus me alethes estin pati monos huk emi al ego kai ha and then pater. And even if I judge, my judgment is true because I alone do not judge, or something, it fudge it into that, but I am the Father.
Yeah, the Father being on the next page, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but even if I do judge, right, so you got the kai, ian, krino, de, right here. But even if I do judge, ego, notice the emphatic I again. But even if I do judge, my judgment is true. He krises me alethes estin. My judgment is true. Why? For I'm not the only one judging. And then the last part of it here, which cuts off, but ego kai, but also I and ha patros, the Father. I and the Father are judging. So I'm not really judging alone, in essence, is what Jesus is saying. Okay, so it finishes off there in mid-sentence, which is not unusual, but it's a fairly clean text. It's not near as hard to see at the end as the prologue page was that we read a moment ago. Okay, so we saw some mistakes in there, some scribal variations, some other kinds of oddities. Our scribe is inconsistent at times, right? In this sense, he made a couple verbs passive that didn't need to be. But he does also fix other mistakes. He added an epsilon in a couple times and added other letters in a couple times and fixed some things. And we've also seen other instances of the nomina sacra. What's curious is some scribes are inconsistent in their abbreviations of the nomina sacra. So they'll abbreviate Jesus one time and not another, just accidentally. Our scribe's actually been pretty consistent. I haven't found an instance, and if you did, let me know, of where God or Jesus appears that wasn't abbreviated. Now, granted, we're only reading 2 folios, right? So it's not like we're covering a lot of ground here. But at least in the part we did read, I didn't notice any things there. Notice at the very end here, I didn't bring this up. Notice what's going on here. And who was up here? Was it Brian? Mm-hmm. What's going on with this little mark? And I'll see if I can pull up our better version of it here. Or let me ask the question another way. If this is ook right here, can you see that?
Uh-huh.
And then you have IMI. What's missing here?
The epsilon.
Epsilon. From what I can tell, let's look real closely here. Does that look like an epsilon, kind of? Well, maybe. It looks like maybe a quick scribal correction over the line again. So he kind of put it a little to the left. It needed to be right here. So he actually made a mistake when he was correcting his mistake, but it needed to be a little bit to the right. But it looks like a quick E. Hard to know. Either way, the E's not there, right? So it's a mistake either way. Is that the correction? Possibly. I don't know what else it would be if that's not it. I'd be curious to see if anybody else had a different opinion, but there's that little factor at the end.
Could it be the mess up on a diatheresis?
Diaresis, not rarely over an upsilon. It could be a breathing. There are diaresis over upsilons, you're right. But usually they're next to another upsilon when that happens. Is that the case up above? I can't remember.
It is.
Okay.
Either an upsilon or another vowel.
It could be a breathing mark, but you wouldn't really have a breathing mark over ook. Yeah, I think that's an E. It's a really crammed in E, I admit. Okay, so this is your whirlwind tour in the New Testament manuscripts. You've gotten a chance to see kind of the way scribes wrote, how they corrected it, little features in the text. Textual criticism is fairly advanced. Okay, they're fairly sophisticated. They use the nomina sacra. The spacing on the page, you've noticed variations in that, and the margins, and so on. So you've learned a lot here in a morning. And this was the whole point of this, is that as I'll talk about manuscripts later, not today, probably tomorrow, we'll get into manuscripts. This part of the course will really help. And hopefully, in addition to that, it's just to help you brush up on your Greek. And now you can say that you not just read Greek out of a UBS text, right, printed nicely for you with all spaces, but now you've read Greek like the early church would have out of a 2nd century manuscript. Okay, any other final queries? Yep.
Thoughts on the Elephas versus Elephine in the UBS?
Oh, yeah, that's another variant I meant to mention. Let me see what I got in my notes on that. Yes, there's another mistake here. He didn't have a good day here, did he, on this section? I want to try to make it a spelling variation, but it just doesn't work. It looks like I just wrote the wrong word in there. I wonder if there's a reason that we could look around for it. Did you have a thought on that, Ryan?
No, I was just asking.
Yeah. I don't even know if our text critical apparatus is even mentioned. You got to realize, of course, that your text critical apparatus doesn't mention every scribal variation for obvious reasons. Your apparatus would be 10 feet thick, and you'd be, why do I need to know there's a spelling change there? But other comments, queries before we wrap this up? Yep, Bar?
So it seems like he kind of blends between what we would call like the lowercase and uppercase letters. Is that just that we've simplified it when we...
Yes. So what you've learned as uppercase letters is not the uppercase letters here in all their ways, okay? Like rho looks like a lowercase, right? Alpha is a little bit different than what you've learned, but similar. Yeah, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of the two. This is why learning uncial text like this is just different than learning a capital letter from your Greek textbook. It's not, and some of them don't have any rhyme or reason, like the sigma being a C. And then the upsilon looks like a Y, doesn't it? And over time, you just get used to reading that as a C. Deltas. This delta is interesting. See, I'm into the paleography here, which is the unique handwriting features. Notice our author likes to hook his deltas. See that little hook on the top? In fact, you can see how he made this stroke if you're curious at all about such things. Look what he did. He probably started here, looped, went back up and hooked it. Or he could probably start at the hook and loop and then finish off there. That's probably what he did, actually. Probably started with this hook and then did that. It's all one stroke, okay? And other letters are one stroke, like the upsilon is one stroke. Notice he loops it around, does that. Notice the thetas have a really wide horizontal stroke. That's interesting. There's a certain type of letter construction going on here, which is different than the later uncial texts. Yeah. So it's, I think, interesting to note that. Yep.
When he switches between the two verbs, the passive and the active form of go when he goes from ergomai to pago, is there significance? I mean, does just one have a destination implicit to it?
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. That could just be sort of stylistic variation. Just chooses a different word. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot behind that, but it's a good observation, though.